Do we see with our physical eyes alone, or with some other part of ourselves, perhaps the mind or the soul? What is the difference between inner and outer vision, between seeing a cardinal on the branch of a cherry tree and dreaming inside yourself, imagining drifting down a river in a wooden boat? I'm Jay Leeming, and this is the Crane Bag Podcast. Today we'll explore these questions, explore them through the Norse myth of Odin and the Well of Wisdom. We will also explore them through an interview with Dr. Larry Wallace, a vision therapist from Ithaca, New York. We've looked at this myth before, studied it a few weeks ago through the lens of history. Today we're going to look at it through seeing itself and through the physical eye and the experience of seeing things within and without ourselves. Thank you for joining me. Let us begin. One night, the god Odin had a bad dream. He dreamed that he was trapped inside a cave of red stone. But as he examined the walls, he found that they were soft and wet. And as he looked more closely, he found that he could see through those walls to the other side, and what he saw there was a forest of fir. And past that fir, he saw stars in the night sky. And as those stars began to go out, one by one, he realized that he was not inside a cave at all, but in fact inside the belly of a gigantic wolf. And a fist of darkness closed around him, and he screamed out, but that scream made no sound. And Odin awoke. He was in his royal bedroom, in his palace, in Asgard, the realm of the gods. His wife Frigg, the goddess, was beside him, still sleeping in the bed. The birds were singing their first songs. Odin stood up, and he walked out of that bedroom and through his palace. And he went up a spiraling stair to the highest tower of that palace. And he came out to the top, and there was a throne there that was open to the air. And he sat in that throne, and from there he could look out upon all the 9 worlds of the universe. There were apples on the trees of Asgard. The sun was just coming up, spreading its golden light over everything. The green grass, the pear trees, the beauty of that place was resplendent and glorious. And then 2 ravens came and perched on his shoulders, Huyin and Munin, thought and memory. And he gave a command, and they spread their powerful wings and flew off and through the 9 worlds. And Odin went down from that tower and had a lovely day there in Asgard with the other gods. All of them went to Gladisheim, the hall of the gods, where they meet and sing songs and argue and tell stories, and pound their fists on tables and drink mead all day long. But as they did this, the 2 ravens, thought and memory, flew through the 9 worlds, and they saw all they could see, and they heard all they could hear. And when that day came to a close, when the wonderful sparkling raindrop on the edge of a leaf that was that day, when that raindrop was finished, when the day was over and the sun was going down, Odin returned to that tower and to that high seat on the top of that tower. And the 2 ravens came and landed on his shoulders. And in raven language they spoke to him of all they had seen and of all they had heard. And one said, "I saw a woman walking with a sword through a field." And the other, "I saw a boat in a harbor, and it was on fire. I saw an apple tree in blossom. I saw 40 men singing in a room. I saw a cow giving birth. I saw a great wind blowing a bush across a desert. I saw a woman opening a chest, and inside was a necklace the color of blood. I saw a sprout coming out of the dark earth into the light." So they told Odin everything they had seen. But nothing that they said explained to him his dream, or told him if that dream was in fact a truth, a real thing that would one day occur, or if it was simply a silly fantasy of the night. And so he stood up from that high chair and walked down the spiraling staircase of that tower. And he went to the door of his palace and took his staff from its place beside the door. And he walked out and looked at the grass of Asgard, at the trees and the palaces there. The sun was going down. And then Odin began to walk. He walked across the grasses of Asgard. He walked past the apple trees there. He walked past the fortress of Thor, covered in spears and shields and strange flags. He walked past the palace of Odin, the goddess of all growing things. He walked past all the palaces of the gods, until at last he came to the great watchtower made of stone, the watchtower where Heimdall lives, the watchman of the gods. And beyond that place, there was the bridge of many colors, the sparkling, snarling bridge of voltage, many colors of light there, a rainbow bridge going out into the darkness. And he set his feet upon that bridge, and he began to walk. And the bridge snarled and sizzled beneath his feet, and the stars far off hissed in the sky, and the darkness itself swarmed and gathered and spread itself out, coiling itself around the stars. He could hear the wind of the universe whistling in his ears. So he crossed that great bridge, and then that bridge came down to the ground, and it did so in a forest of oak trees in Middle-earth, Midden-Jerd, where all of us live, with our coffee and our wheels and our broken spoons. And he wandered by night through Middle-earth, dressed as a shabby wanderer in a ragged cloak. He kept mostly to the gutters and to the shadows, the alleyways of our world. And sometimes in a village, 3 rough men, warming their hands over a fire they'd made out of a broken chair, would be joined by a 4th, a traveler with a long beard and a gray hat. And this traveler would listen to their stories. But when they turned to ask him for his story, they discovered that he was no longer there. So Odin wandered through Middle-earth, listening, asking questions, and listening some more. And finally he came to the great tree itself, Yggdrasil, the tree at the center of all things, a gigantic tree. He could see it lit up in the moonlight and the starlight. He looked far up its trunk. He could barely see the glimmer of Asgard there in the highest branches, the realm of the gods. And then he began to walk down the side of this tree, this immense tree like a mountain itself. And sometimes the trail was a spiraling, dusty trail carved into its bark. And sometimes that trail had been whittled and worn away by the wind. And there were only rough handholds there. Sometimes he had to scale down the side of that great tree with his staff lashed to his back, feeling his way like a mountain climber, dangling down the cliff face, his feet searching for footholds. But step by step, inch by inch, he made his way down that tree. And as time went on, he went past the realm called Jotunheimr. Jotunheimr, the realm of the Jotuns, the frost giants. And he passed the realm of fire, Muspel, and the realm of the dwarves, that mountainous place. And and the realm of ice as well, until finally he came to a dark and tangled place. He came to the roots of that tree, like 1,000 riddles, spewing and tangling themselves out into the darkness. He followed one of those great roots. Down and down it went, curling like hair, like the end of an old story or a new story about to happen, about to sprout into the air. Down and down he went, curling and spiraling around, following that trail, until finally he came to a realm of darkness and of water. He came to a great cavern, and he could hear the sound of dripping water. There was a great cave there, and there was a pool of water there. And slowly he walked to the edge of that water. But as he stood there, a man came out of the shadows, a tall man dressed in black and silver and pale green. And he said, "Who goes there? I am Mimir, the guardian of this well of wisdom. Who are you, traveler?" And Odin stepped forward, and in the starlight his face could be seen. And he said, "I am Odin, the All-Father, King of the Gods. I have come to this place." And Mimir said, "Odin, Odin, your very self. You've come a long way, my friend. What brings you here?" And for a moment, the dream of the wolf's red belly flashed before Odin's eyes, and he said, "I seek wisdom. I wish to drink from these waters." And Mimir said, "Well, Odin, drinking from these waters is possible, but anyone who drinks must first give an offering to these waters." And Odin looked at him and said, "I will give you whatever you ask." That's what he said. He didn't haggle. He didn't bargain. He simply said it just like that, the god he was. He said, "I will give you whatever you ask." And Mimir looked at him thoughtfully. "I think you must offer up to these waters your left eye." And without hesitation, Odin took his fingers and dug them into his left eye socket. And he took hold of his own wet eyeball, and he twisted it and snapped it out of his head, and held it before him in his palm. And then he placed it in the waters of that well, and it dropped down into the darkness. And he stood with blood trickling from his eye socket. And Mimir took a great drinking horn from his belt, and he knelt and filled it up with that water, and he handed it to Odin. And Odin took that drinking horn, and he drank that crashing, sparkling water down into his bones. And as he did so, the memories of every man and woman who had ever lived entered his body. For it is said that when humans die, they go down to the underworld, and they cross the great river. And when they get to the other side, their memories are gone from them. They are but empty shells, just ghosts of what they were. They go off wandering in darkness. But their memories are not destroyed. Their memories go down into the water, and this flows into the well of wisdom. And not only men and women, but also animals as well. Their memories too go into the water. So Odin felt flickering and rising in him millions of lives. A carpenter measuring a board, a woman in childbirth, an old man weeping for his dead son, a frog in a bog, a bat flitting through a cavern somewhere, a hummingbird, a bee, even the dreams of the stones and the snakes and the butterflies and the bears in their long winter sleep, the jeweler looking at a jewel, a gem, a man on the battlefield facing death, laughter, joy, sickness, sorrow, all these things like 1,000,000 colors went flickering through his body. And in that moment, he saw again that red cave, the inside of the belly of the wolf. And he knew that that was a true vision. That was, in fact, something that would come to pass. And he saw Thor lying dead in a field. He saw all the gods dead in the field of Asgard. He saw fire covering their bodies. He saw fire devouring the strong oaken beams of Gladysheim, the hall of the gods. He saw smoke and ash rising from that ruin up into the sky, obscuring the sun. He saw the sun devoured by a great wolf. And then he looked, and there was Mimir before him. And there was the darkness of that cavern all around, and the sound of dripping water. And Mimir said, "Have you seen?" And Odin said, "I have seen." And Odin turned from Mimir, and he put his feet upon the path, and he began to walk. And once again, he followed a great root of that tree, up, up through the darkness, past the realm of fire, where Surt, the fire giant, waits with a flaming sword to claim Asgard for his own. And he walked past the realm of ice, and past the various underworlds down there, the realm of the dwarves, up and up he went, scaling the side of that great tree, until he came to Middle-earth. And once again he wandered the paths and the alleyways of Middle-earth, the forests of that place, the tangled places, until he came to that great forest of oak trees. And there, in the darkness, glowing, he could see the Rainbow Bridge. A bridge of many colors, all of the spectrum was there, sizzling with voltage, and he put his feet onto that great bridge, and he began to walk. And once again, the stars hissed in the darkness and sang their old songs, and the fresh darkness itself spewed and rambled and writhed around the world, cradling each star in its mouth. Forward he went over the snarling bridge, and then, in the first light of dawn, he saw the Tower of Heimdall, for the sun was indeed rising and spreading its pink light over the world. And Odin set foot on the green grass of Asgard. The birds were singing their songs. The apple trees were bright with apples. It was morning once again. And he walked across the fields of Asgard, past the pear trees, past the great palace of Odin, the goddess of growth, past the fortress of Thor, that fortress covered in spikes and shields and strange flags. And he went to the great hall of Gladysheim, and he went through the golden doors, and there was Frigg, his wife, to greet him there. And she threw her arms around him and embraced him. And the other gods were there as well. Thor, the god of thunder, Bragi, the god of song, Freya, the goddess of love and beauty. Idun was there with her golden apples. All of them were there. And they all gathered around a banquet table. And there was amazing food there. They had roasted an ox. There was apples of all kinds. There was pears. There were amazing baked goods. It was resplendent, that table, with wine and food of all kinds. And the candles were lit, and they shone in the eyes of the gods and the goddesses there. And Thor said, "Odin, we must have a toast." And Odin stood up and held his drinking horn in his hand, and all the other gods stood up as well. And Odin looked at all of them, and for a moment, as he looked at the brightness in their eyes, he remembered again the clench of the wolf's belly around him, and he saw again the ashes of that very hall of Gladysheim rising up into the sky, obscuring the sun. He saw Thor dead in a field. He saw all of them devoured by fire, their bodies consumed, turned to ash. But he looked at them now, their faces bright with happiness, glad to be there, the candles shining bright in their eyes. And he said, a toast to this moment. And all the gods answered him with their voices, and they drained their glasses, and they sat down to a wonderful, fantastic feast. And when that feast was over, when the god Bragi had sang his last song and put his harp away, when the plates were empty, and their hearts and their bellies were full and content, all the gods went away to their separate palaces. And Odin and Frigg together walked across the grass of Asgard towards their palace. And they entered through the golden doors of that place and ascended the stairs to the royal bedroom. And they lay down in that bedroom, and soon Frigg was asleep, and darkness covered the world. And before long, Odin slept as well. And in that darkness, he dreamed. Today, I'm really honored to have on the show Dr. Larry Wallace, who is a specialist in vision therapy and optometric phototherapy. He's got a PhD in ocular phototherapy and has been practicing in the Ithaca area for about 45 years and has done amazing work looking at the whole body in relation to vision. He is connected with Whole Picture Health and Vision, which is located in downtown Ithaca, where you can go for eye care. And he's on the show today. Thanks for joining me, Larry.
Thank you, Jay, for having me.
Well, we just heard this story about Odin and the underworld, and I just really, these stories live around us and they live in us. They kind of help determine our world. So what were your thoughts on hearing this story, Dr. Wallace?
Well, there were two things that stood out for me, being an eye doctor and all. One is that when he tore his eye out, it was really like a metaphor that you don't see with your eye, you don't see with your eyeball, you see with your mind. Mm-hmm. And so by removing his eyeball in order to see more in his mind and see more into the future, I thought that was the idea of that. And ultimately, his dream experience led him to the realization that what's most important is to be in the present. And he was looking for the future and answers for into the future, but he finally at the end understood that being in the present was most important. And he went back and enjoyed his meal and with all of his friends and family, and realized that's the way he wanted to live his life. And in terms of your vision, that's a good metaphor for your vision, because when you're not in the present, you're not using your vision. You're seeing with your mind, you're drawing on your memories, you're drawing on all kinds of experiences within your body that emerges in the way you see the world. And when you're not in the present, you're not really paying attention visually. So I think that was two of the main points that I really got out of the story.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, that's a lot. I feel like I could spend all day just trying to understand those 2 points. You said we see with the mind, not so much with the physical eyeball. Can you say a little more about that, or how are the two related, the physical eyeball and the mind?
Well, they're related in a number of ways. I mean, one is, of course, your eye is the main receptor for light, and light coming into your eye is what's driving your vision. And also that light is also associated with consciousness. And consciousness is a field that surrounds us and is always emerging and being regenerated and recreated every moment. So our vision emerges from within us by contacting that field of consciousness. And so the more we're in the present, the more we're aware of our surroundings and drawing on our memory, which allows us to relate to everything that we see, the more perfect our vision is going to be. And also on a physical level, there's a lot of connections between the outer and the inner. In fact, relate one story that in Russia, they developed a technology where they can measure your color vision. And when they measure your color vision by looking at a certain picture, you have to reproduce the way you see the picture. They can determine by the way you see color what's going on inside your body. They can determine the physiology in your body, weaknesses. They can see what the way proteins are being expressed, DNA, and they can actually diagnose about 200 different conditions by the way you see color. And then what's most interesting to me is that they have you look at color, they give you colors that they see you're deficient in, and that in turn changes the internal physiology of your body. So the way you see is dependent on what's going on inside of you, and then what's going on outside of you is always affecting what's going on the inside. There's a constant connection. There's no disconnection between the outer and the inner vision.
So we see with our minds, but the light comes in through our eyes, and obviously we can't do without our eyes.
Well, that's true. Yeah, the vision is our dominant sense. In fact, it takes up about when you're using your vision, over 80% of the neurons in your brain are firing. And you're not only using the vision, the brain is not only processing the light energy, but it's drawing from a lot of internal inputs as well. That is from your respiration, from your posture, from your inner ear and your balance system. There's a lot of inputs that are coming into your brain from all these other non-seeing parts that are actually affecting the way you're seen outwardly in the world. And so there's this inner-outer connection that exists at all moments.
Wow. So what happens when we close our eyes and imagine something or recall a memory? Is that just a different kind of vision, or is it something else?
Another visual skill. Visualization is a very powerful tool, and that's where we're basically generating and creating internal vision, and that actually helps us see the world. In fact, the stronger your visual memory is, and the stronger your visualization is, the better you see around you. But it also contributes to all kinds of performance levels: how you think, how clearly you can solve problems, and ultimately your creativity is dependent on your internal vision. And so they're very closely related.
Yeah. My experience as a child was to be in a place like school, for example. And I remember just daydreaming through classes I didn't like. Geometry class. For some reason, I just did not like geometry class. And I would daydream. I would imagine and remember stories from films, comic books, things I made up, stories that excited me, usually science fiction stories at that time. For me. So is that a different kind of vision? Does that impair vision in any way?
I think it does impair it. I think that in some ways it actually enhances it. And I mean, you lose contact with what's going on around you. So in that sense, you're not seeing what's in front of you, but you're developing your imagination and your visualization. And that in turn will help you outwardly see better ultimately. So they're related, and I can relate to what you said because I used to daydream all the time in class.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I used to daydream a lot about being in the woods. And in fact, I just took a seminar about a week ago that was saying when we look at it was showing with quantum physics, when we look at the tree, or any plants, the green or the colors of the leaves now, the yellow, the orange, are all coming into our eye, going directly into every cell of our body, every piece of DNA in our body is absorbing that light energy, and then actually sending biophotons that are created light internally back out again into the world.
Mm.
So this kind of ultimate interconnection of reality that dependent on even on your daydreams, and then what you're seeing ultimately in the real world in terms of biophysics.
Yeah. And is there a difference ultimately for the soul, for the psyche, in seeing, for example, an oak tree covered in orange, beautiful autumn leaves, and imagining that same oak tree?
Well, there is a difference because when you're actually looking at it, you actually are absorbing the light energy into your body, and you're connecting with it on actually a physical level.
Mhm.
I think you're imagining that it's not, you are generating those sensations in your body, but I don't think it is really exactly the same. But when you visualize, you can increase your performance. I mean, athletes who visualize what they want, the outcome of whatever physical act they're going to be doing, whether it's hitting a golf ball or making a basketball shot, improves their performance dramatically. So practicing visually is programming you and priming you for better vision out in the world and performance as well.
Yeah.
And that's a problem with computer screens, because when we're in front of screens all the time, we're not using our imagination. We're not using our visualization. We're not using our visual memory. So children who are in front of screens all the time are not developing that aspect of themselves, which is really so important in creativity and also in their visual health, because we're looking at vision as epidemics of nearsightedness in not only here but around the world, because people are sitting in front of screens all the time.
Mm. What's the time frame? Do you mean like in the last 10 or 20 years or so?
Yes, the last 20 years. It used to be maybe a third of the population, and now it's like something like 60% of the population are becoming myopic or nearsighted.
Wow. And you're saying that's largely the result of the amount of screens we're confronted with.
Yeah, yes, and it's part of it is actual the lack of visual stimulation or overstimulation, but there's also other elements like posture, breathing, the way we're holding our neck and our head. All these things develop physical adjustments in our cranium that actually distort our eyeball shape, and that contributes to a lot of the problems with seeing as well.
Yeah. So the shape of the eyeball is determined not simply by the eyeball itself, but by a whole world of factors, right?
Correct. Yes, it's a fluid organ, and it's floating in there, and it's constantly being affected by the muscles around the eye that are attached to the bones of the head, which are attached to the neck, and which are attached to the shoulders. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the eyeball actually can change its shape all the time. It can change its shape. It can distort it in a permanent way from a lot of these.
I notice it on the simplest level, like walking in the woods. If my posture is down, if I'm worried about hitting a root, I look down and I don't see the clouds up in the sky, right? But if I'm more relaxed and looking up, then you see the clouds or the birds or whatever.
Yeah, but it is true. If you don't look down, you hit your feet too.
we, we,
So,
we don't want to do that.
right, right.
I'm remembering also in the Irish bardic tradition, the bards, the great poets of Ireland, there's stories that go pretty far back about how they would train themselves. And one way was to have the student in a hut, a stone hut, with all the windows blacked out by sheepskins during the day. And the teacher would send them in there for 8 hours or something like that. And when they came out, they had to have a poem. So they would go into the dark to seek the poem that they had to learn. So, I mean, from one point of view, that's kind of a crazy thing to do. But from what you're saying, I can see that that's an effective strategy.
Yeah, it really makes a lot of sense. Yeah, yeah. I think you tap into a lot of deeper layers that aren't accessible to you in normal daytime consciousness. You're
Mhm.
still, it's not a dream state, but it's almost like that. But you're able to contact much deeper layers of your unconscious that are wells of creativity can be, drawn upon in that way. And darkness is very important. As I mean, we need light, but we also need dark. And that leads into a whole other field of photobiology, where people who have too much light um, develop all kinds of health problems. In fact, they
Mm.
did studies where they're light at night and people don't get complete darkness. They develop a lot of immune problems.
So basically, we need a certain amount of darkness in order to see well.
Absolutely.
Thank you for explaining these amazing things. I'm still wrestling a little bit with the relations between the inner and the outer world, between inner and outer vision. In the story, Odin gives up his eye to see more deeply within, it seems. So, but we don't want that. I mean, we want there to be harmony between inner vision and outer vision, right?
Right. No, so there is a flaw there, because also just on a physical level, if you lose one eye, you lose what's called binocularity, which is
Hmm.
the ability to judge space around you with depth. And if you only have one eye, you don't see the world in three dimensions the same way as you do with two eyes. In fact, the crown jewel of visual skills is called binocularity. How well do the two eyes fuse together, which fuses, the spatial world and the halves of our brain. So you're really giving up something by tearing your eye out. It was a very drastic kind of way to accomplish that.
I felt kind of bad sharing that story with an optometrist.
No, it was good. I thought it was a good metaphor.
So, would you say that that's a false choice between inner and outer vision, that actually it's possible to have clear vision in the world and inner imaginative vision both be healthy and alive and well?
Absolutely, absolutely, right.
Yeah.
It's a question, and it's a question of developing it, because vision is not it's not a static process. It's a continually emergent process. So you can train it, you can improve your vision, you can improve all the visual abilities can be trained even throughout your whole life.
Hmm.
They can You've got neuroplasticity in your brain that allows new connections, new pathways, new utilization of energy. And so you don't have to be sacrificing physically in that way to evolve your consciousness or yourself.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you say about the screens. And I certainly feel the pressure of screen time in my life. And I guess a lot of us do. And from what you're saying, it sounds like imagination will be less alive, less healthy, less nourished. There'll be less of it if we spend more time on the screen.
Yeah, it's the visual imagery is right there in front of you, just like television does the same thing as well. You don't have to use your imagination, and so if you don't use it, you lose it in certain ways.
Yeah. And you spoke earlier about color, and you've worked a lot on color's influence on the body, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And you mentioned recent studies done in Russia on color, where they can look at how an individual perceives color and then diagnose problems in the body, correct?
Exactly. Every deficiency in your color vision has a correlate of a physical disability or dysfunction in your body. So they can, wherever, if you don't see one color, it shows that this might affect your liver or your kidneys or your heart. So yeah, there's a correlation between the way you're perceiving color, absorbing color, and what's going on in your physiology.
Mhm.
So ultimately, ultimately, the light is, you are made up of light. Light is the main integrator of communication within all the cells of your body, and everything is moving at the speed of light. It's not moving through nerve reflexes or biochemistry. In fact, there's 100,000 chemical reactions per second going on inside the cells of your body. And
Wow.
that can't possibly be coordinated by anything physical. And it's really correlated by photons of light, which have no mass but have energy.
Mhm. Wow.
Profound stuff, but it's really, that's where we're moving. The paradigm is moving in that direction, to really seeing that light is the absolute regulator of communication within all the cells, and within a relationship to everything around us. We're taking in light and we're using it and we're sending out light. So,
So light, in some sense, holds the body together.
in fact, well, yeah, the physicist Bohm said that we are basically, our whole system, all matter is frozen light. Everything is ultimately light in that regard. And that's why light is looked at and color is looked at as synonymous with consciousness, or, you
Hmm.
know, some religions, it's God, it's mysticism, it's a consciousness, and the ground state.
All matter is frozen light, you said.
Yes.
That's amazing. Um, so we seek light, we require it, and we talk about enlightenment, such as the Buddha had. But without a certain amount of darkness, we aren't healthy and alive to our fullest potential.
Yes, that's true.
So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is that if someone had a certain condition, say a liver condition, and they went to an art gallery, they would not perceive certain colors as vividly because of that condition. Is that true?
Yes, that's true. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then also, which is interesting, there's another technology in Russia that uses something called photon discharge photography, where there are these biophotons, these little photons of light coming out of your body. That's what, when people who have the ability, they can see an aura. Well, there really is light coming out of your body. And now they have technology called photon counters, where they can measure all the light coming out of your body. And so now, at the same time, they're finding with the light coming out of your body, they can generate pictures of the energy fields around your body, and then they can tell what's going on inside the body by the way the photons are coming out of the body. So they can detect problems in certain kinds of, again, from certain parts of your health by the emission of these biophotons that come out of your body. And then they're giving treatment and then seeing changes in those biophotons. And that's a whole other new technology that's growing rapidly every day.
Yeah. And what's the name for that technology again?
What's called photo discharge photography.
Yeah. It sounds like seeing auras pretty much.
Yeah, it is. That their
Yeah.
auras are there. We don't normally see them, but these instruments can see them and measure them.
Hmm.
And what they measure is they can see where there's a deficiency of emissions of these biophotons correlating to certain physical disorders within your body.
Mm. And and can you go the other way and heal disorders within the body by exposing yourself to certain colors?
Yes, yes, yeah, that's yes, and that's part of the field of photobiology. Is it's called biophoto modulation or photobiomodulation, where they're putting color into the body, into those areas that are deficient, and then finding changes, and they're treating numbers of conditions that way. And
Mm.
in my field, we treat vision problems by putting light into different colors of light into your eyes and affecting your body physiology, which is supporting certain kinds of vision functions. That's called the field of syntonic optometry. That is to bring the physiology of the body more into balance with color and affect changes in the visual system.
Yeah.
Practice in science, art and science in itself.
Well, we use the phrase aromatherapy for a smell, which has a deep effect on the body. And there should be a phrase, well, maybe there is a phrase for the effect of color, like going to an art gallery and bathing in blue, for example, or something like that.
Yeah, and like you say, there's a lot of other modalities. There's aromatherapy, there's sound therapy.
Hmm.
Uh, it's all has to ultimately have to do with the recognition that everything is related to vibrations.
Hmm.
Everything has to do with frequency. We are bodies. There's frequency fields, and they can be affected by lots of different energy applications. But light is one of the most powerful ones.
Yeah. Well, just because you are a doctor, I would ask, what's the prescription if we're seeking healthy vision in the outer and inner worlds, if we're seeking imagination that is creative and lively and nourishing and comes from a deep place, but we also want to see clearly in the outer world? I mean, I know this is a big question, but how do we nourish that and ensure that in our own lives and for society as a whole?
Well, yeah, it's a really big question. I mean, I guess from an educational standpoint, I'm probably prejudiced towards the Waldorf system, where they work with art and imagination, storytelling, um, movement, all those kinds of things at a young age, instead of forcing kids into trying to read when they're 4 years old. And
Mhm.
it said you don't read till you're 8 years old. But at another level, what you're asking is that. It's a complex question, but I think ultimately it's one that depends on interdisciplinary approaches. I mean, there are so many different approaches that need to work together. No one approach to health is an answer to me. You need multiple answers, and the more you can open yourself up to choices and maybe use your intuition at what things benefit you the most, the more you can open yourself to different experiences and different health practitioners, the better.
Yeah. So the more solutions we have, the better, clearly. And I guess for me as a writer and a storyteller, I notice how the screen, as opposed to like a notebook, detracts from my ability to stare into space, which is something you need to do when you're creating, when you're imagining something, when you're even just looking for the right word. And the screen, it's bright, it has the time on it, it has icons on it. So it's distracting from that ability to look into the distance in the far away and really focus on what you're actually doing.
So, it's very important to look away and to blink and breathe. I mean, that's just critical. So staring is a very tense state, which reduces your vision and your imagination. So looking out into the distance frequently and blinking and taking a deep breaths are really important in all computer use.
Yeah. How did you come to this particular area of study, not just optometry and vision, but color therapy and modalities of that sort?
Well, I was exposed to these. Well, I was always interested in these ideas, even when I was in optometry school. But that I was always interested in psychophysical aspects of vision. The Bates system, for instance, where you learn to do physical exercises, but it's all about shifting your perception and your consciousness to see better. And then I went and I worked in a holistic health vision clinic in California, where they used multidisciplinary approaches. That is, they had body workers and nutrition and psychologists and vision therapy and lots of and Feldenkrais, Alexander, lots of different approaches, all giving the opportunity to the patients to be treated at multiple levels. But what interested me the most there, or very much so, was the introduction to syntonics, which is the field of optometric phototherapy, which we never even heard about in school. And from there, I was immediately drawn to the whole idea of the power of light. It just made so much sense to me. So that's how I got into it. I've been studying it ever since the last 45 years.
Mm.
And ongoing process. We're always learning new things, and that's part of the excitement of it. We can't truly explain vision any more than we can explain light, but they're intimately related, and it's a field that it offers an opportunity for lifelong study and learning and stimulation. So I think that's how I got into it, and it's never lessened in any way.
Yeah. How has your own relation to these things changed over the years?
Well, it's changed in that I've been teaching this to other doctors, and now we have hundreds of people in our webinars, which shows there's a very expanding interest in all these things.
Hmm.
And I've also learned that all different kinds of applications of using color to treat other kinds of conditions, like anything from dry eyes to problems with retinal circulation and things like that. So it's always an evolving science and art.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts for us about specific colors that we find around us?
Each color has all kinds of effects, their own unique effects, on psychological and physical levels. But anyway, that's a whole big thing in itself. So.
Well, it does spring to mind, actually, because I'm sitting here in a room talking to you and the room has a green wall. So after hearing what you're saying, I'm wondering, is this color talking to my liver or my lungs, or what is it doing, actually?
Green is great. Green is the balancer. It balances all of it. It balances the whole physiology. So and it's also very good for your heart and your creativity too. So it's a really good color.
Yeah. And don't they use certain colors in jails, for example?
Like blue, for instance, is used, and blue sedates you and relaxes you. So they
Hmm.
use blue, and green balances you. Yeah, red is not what you want to do. You don't want to be stimulated, certainly in a jail setting. Increasing people's adrenaline and their anger or whatever else. So,
Hmm.
um, red is energy given, but it's also very stimulating to your nervous system, and it's needed for lots of things. But So yeah, there's always, in fact, years ago, I remember I was hired by this company in Syracuse. I went into this factory and had them paint the walls to try to make it less stressful on the workers. It was it was an interesting experience.
What did you do? What color did you pick?
Greens and blues, right? Because it
Mm.
was a very dense factory. There were a lot of noise, a lot of stimulation.
Wow. And yellow? I'm just curious. What's up with yellow?
It gives it stimulates your nerves. It's a tonic. I mean, it energizes you.
Hmm.
So it has a place for sure. I mean, they all do. Every color has its place. But yellow is a nerve stimulant.
Hmm.
And so what we call a motor stimulant. It energizes all the muscles in your body.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking back also to Norse myth. There is a rainbow bridge between Middle Earth and the realm of the gods. So to see the whole spectrum like that, to see all the colors at once, that must be a very healing thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, there was a technology, an instrument made where you would look at it and would go through all the colors back and forth, and that had a lot of effects. And yeah, that's a whole thing. You could get into that. I mean, they also nowadays they developed an instrument where you look at all the colors, and at the same time they play music of certain sounds and frequencies, and then they vibrate the table and move it up and down at the same time. So you're getting auditory, kinesthetic, and visual all at once. And they're treating very profound learning problems with that technology. Kids with autism, people with severe brain injuries. So yeah, anyway, they're using all the colors, and I guess the idea is that you take out the colors that you really need, and the ones you don't doesn't have there's no negative effect.
You take out the colors you need. Did you mean in the sense of remove?
Well, no, I meant you absorb the ones you need. That's what I really meant, not take out.
I see.
Those are the ones you need. You will absorb them,
Gotcha.
right? Not, I didn't mean to eliminate the ones you
I,
don't need. Kind of don't have any effect, and there's no negative. There's been no negativity. It's just that you're not absorbing it.
yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot of exciting things are happening these days in the field of vision.
It really is. Yeah,
Cool.
I mean, the whole field of quantum physics has opened up a whole other understanding of all these energy modalities that before we just didn't know. They were all like they had no scientific validity in terms of Western science, but now that's all changing because they're seeing it. I mean, every day I read about things in the paper. They're putting red light into the brain now for brain injury.
Mm.
Shooting lasers into your head to improve the energy production and cell regeneration. So it's happening at lots of different levels.
Yeah. And if folks want to seek out these therapies in other places, I mentioned earlier Whole Picture Health and Vision located in Ithaca, New York, which you've been connected with for a long time. Any other resources you'd like to tell folks about?
If you want to learn about this field, an organization called the International Light Association is an association of all different kinds of light and color. People with light and color, from artists to engineers to architects to color therapists to doctors practicing phototherapy, all belong to one organization to further the study of light and color. And that's international, and there's people there from all over the world, and it gives an opportunity to learn and to be exposed to lots of different applications and educational experiences. They do ongoing webinars, and they used to do ongoing conferences till we have this plague that we have to deal with now.
Right, right. Well, those sound like fabulous resources for folks. And it's autumn here. I'm realizing that talking to you, I'm realizing that now we're all walking out into a world filled with these colors, which are affecting us in very deep ways. So thank you for opening our eyes to that. And thank you very much for being on the show. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Well, just what you said about the leaves, it's a good opportunity to go out there and get your color therapy, looking at the leaves. And you'll notice that your eyes will be drawn to the colors that your system needs. And that's an interesting thing that it'll be just, your eyes will go to what they need. And so you'll just pay attention to the colors that you're drawn to. And that'll tell you a lot about what your need and what benefits you at this particular moment of time and space.
I've been speaking with the optometrist Dr. Larry Wallace, who for the last 45 years has been working in the field of vision therapy, studying the effects of light on the body. And this is the Crane Bag Podcast, and I am Jay Leeming. Thanks for listening to this show. You can find more shows like this online at my website, jayleeming.com, jayleeming.com, all there for free. If you're able to support this kind of investigation of stories and this kind of storytelling, please do so. Patreon is a great way to do that. You can find a link to that on my website. Thanks very much for listening. May we all have healthy vision, both inner vision and outer vision. Take care.